All right, let's turn our attentions, if we might, to Ms. Harris. Now,
Senator Harris.
Yes. Presidential aspirant
Harris,
who did her big opening rally in Oakland. I know you have a lot of stuff you want to talk about with the Medicare for All thing that she did, and I think there was a CNN town hall where she unleashed that gem. But before she did that, she was in Oakland, and
she announced for Medicare for All in her official announcement in Oakland. So it wasn't just on CNN. In other words, she included Medicare for All in her.
But she clarified
that
everybody who works for any health insurance company is going to be looking for a new job at the CNN town hall. So for Oakland, I thought, by the way, I thought she was masterful. It was a great moment for her. I thought she did extremely well. She seemed kind of likable in a human, non-stiff way, with some laugh moments of her recalling instances of her childhood in a way that seemed the opposite of like pre-programmed and poll tested. It just sort of seemed like natural talk, which I think is a big deal, especially, for a politician to come off that way. And she also did something, Tim, that I thought really impressive. She's getting so much criticism from the Democrat Party progressive left about her prosecutor status. So they ran a hit piece against her in the New York Times, where a law professor ran down how she wasn't progressive. And by the way, I agree with that assessment that she's not. But at the same time, she's doing a great job, and I want you to go ahead and play the lemonade clip, because she is turning that prosecutorial lemon right into some lemonade with this part.
That inspired me to become a lawyer and a prosecutor. It was just a couple of blocks from this very spot, nearly 30 years ago. As a young district attorney, I walked into the courtroom for the first time and said the 5 words that would guide my life's work. Kamala Harris, for the people.
For the people, Tim.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay? Not for the government, which is what everybody...
I got to interrupt you because, I spent a lot of time in Florida, okay? And in Florida, everywhere you drive, they have these billboards of these ambulance chasers. I forget the name of the company. And it says, for the people. That's their level. So every time I hear this, Kamala Harris, for the people, I think of that law firm in Florida that advertises on billboards. You say she's done a masterful job. And I've heard other people on the right, including Rush Limbaugh, saying, she really was impressive. And, she really seems like she's a heavyweight. I mean, I didn't think her announcement speech was anything special. I thought she was okay. Does she look better in comparison to people like Cory Booker and Elizabeth Warren?
Sure, she looks better than she has,
does,
I think. I don't think she acquitted herself terribly well. The last time she was on the national stage was the Kavanaugh hearings, I think.
That's correct.
And I don't think she did a good job acquitting herself in a presidential manner. Right.
Mr. Chairman?
So this, I think,
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah. Are you done?
I'm not going to tell you. It'd be too much fun. I mean, she interrupted him 4 or 5 times in his opening sentence.
I know. But that doesn't mean that she didn't
Mr. Chairman?
She didn't do a good job here. And I think she did do a good job.
Yeah, no, she did a perfectly commendable job as candidates go. But
especially for the Democrat base. So she went through this laundry list of. Did she check off the racism box? Yes, she did check off the racism box. Did she check this box?
The woman box. Big time.
Speaking of the woman box, go ahead and play the pay gap soundbite, please.
Women are paid on average 80 cents on the dollar. Black women, 63 cents. Latinas, 53 cents. And here's the thing. When we lift up the women of our country, we lift up the children of our country.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
The families of our country.
Si se puede.
And the whole of society benefits.
Okay. She has mastered the art of the politician, of talking a lot, talking loud, and saying nothing.
Yes.
Which used to be the theme of one of our segments.
These truths. That's what she
says. That
she comes out with these truths.
I mean, so she said women should be paid the same.
So here's the...
you
missed the takeaway on that. Here's the There's 2 takeaways on that. The first one that I love is that the idea that... So it is true that women on average, are paid less. So what does that have to do with anything? If you account for the things that make people get paid more, such as education, hours in the workplace, decisions about what kind of job you take, those differences go away to almost zero.
And decisions that relate to child rearing, because women do the bulk of child rearing. I know you're not supposed to say that anymore.
Certainly.
But you leave the workforce. If you're raising children, you leave the workforce
Tim,
for 10 years.
It's ridiculous.
I mean,
here's what I want some progressive to explain to me. And this is why I wanted you to play that clip.
All right.
What I understand from Ms. Harris is that African-American women are paid 63 cents on the dollar compared to white women.
Okay.
But Hispanic women are paid 53 cents on the dollar compared to African-American women and white women. Are we more racist against Hispanic women than African-American? When did that happen in this country? That's now
evidently,
and to the point of 10 cents. So it couldn't have anything to do with the prevalence of illegal immigrants that are Latinas. That couldn't account for anything.
I think there needs to be a Hispanic march against black privilege. Because
they got that extra 10 cents.
They got that extra 10 cents.
That's exactly right.
A march against black privilege in this country. We came up with a new idea.
I'll meet you on the mall. Okay. Well, it's not all vinegar from Kamala Harris. I have been and will continue to be very critical of her, but she did say one thing, and literally, I do mean one thing in her address in Oakland that I thought was worth looking forward to should she win. And this is her drug war statement.
Big pharmaceutical companies have unleashed an opioid crisis from the California coast to the mountains of West Virginia. And people, once and for all, we have got to call drug addiction what it is: a national public health emergency.
Wait for it. Here it comes. Here's the good stuff.
And what we don't need is another war on drugs.
So I'm happy for that. Now, the idea that no one is to blame for the massive opioid problem we have in this country except for some pharmaceutical company executives, I reject wholly. But in any case, I don't care what you think the reason for it is. If you're in favor of, or this is a weird way to say it, if you're not in favor of another drug war, which we can't have in this country.
Well, I didn't know that the current one had ended yet.
Right. Well, new fronts are opening all the time.
It's true. I mean, you have to separate it out because you got opioids at one end, you got marijuana at the other, and the difference is like night and day in terms of addiction, in terms of the effects on productivity and of society in general.
The effect of prohibition is not different. Prohibition breeds lack of respect for law and order, lack of law and order, a blooming of an underground and black market, and then you get all the commensurate ills and sort of societal ills that go along with it. So while I agree with you that those drugs are vastly different, prohibition of drugs is not vastly different.
Okay. Well, we can do a whole podcast on that to be sure about whether heroin and the like should be legal or not, and the libertarian view on that and all that. But the point is that, she is catching the wave of...
Oh, yeah. It's totally insincere, by the way. So just so we're clear, she's a prosecutor. There's plenty of guys in prison today because Kamala Harris put them there for drugs. But absolutely.
She was, on the other hand, she was just applying the law. I mean, she didn't choose to make the law that way. So you can't really blame her for...
How can I not blame her?
Yeah.
I turned down employment at a prosecutor's office because I refused to put my neighbors into cages for the drugs that they wanted to take. So I totally disagree. I mean, to say that I disagree with the fiber of my being, that I can't ascribe a moral charge against somebody who she wasn't starving to death and had to do prosecutorial work to feed her infant children. She did it because she wanted to and to get herself in the position that she is in today on the backs of people who use drugs.
Okay, but on the other hand, you could make the argument that prosecuting drug cases is a small portion of her total portfolio as the Attorney General of California, or even as District Attorney of San Francisco, which she was before she became
She did
the
a lot
State
of
Attorney
line
General.
prosecutions before she became District Attorney. So district attorneys don't even prosecute anybody. They manage cases.
Right.
But as we learned about today, Also on Liberty Nation Radio, the prosecutor Mosby in Baltimore has said she will no longer prosecute marijuana cases in Baltimore. She believes that for many reasons, she's just not going to bring those prosecutions, as is her right as the duly elected prosecutor. Guess who else could have done that? Kamala Harris. She chose not to. She chose to go ahead and engage in those prosecutions. I think you're really off base here with the idea that somehow she doesn't bear the mark of those prosecutions on her.
Well, she will bear that mark. Yeah. I mean, because she will be attacked for that. She'll be attacked by the other Democrats as being insufficiently progressive, depending how you
liberal,
define
whatever you
progressive.
Want to say it.
But now I want to talk about Medicare for All, though, because that has been her signature. It's not her bill. I mean, the bill is
Bernie's bill,
it's
right?
Bernie's bill. Yeah. It's Bernie Sanders' bill, but she's signing on to it. So is Elizabeth Warren.
Before you get into your thing, can you tell me? And I'm not suggesting that you're eligible for Medicare or that you're on Medicare. All right, so I want to preface my question with that. Okay, we know you are many years my senior, but not that senior. Okay,
Right.
No, but seriously, do you have a sense of like? I've heard wild numbers about cost projections and everything else. Yeah. Can you give us I know that you've written and you did a 5 facts video for it. Also discoverable on libertynation.com and YouTube. Tell us.
Well, first let's play what she actually said at her announcement, just to put it on the record.
I am running to declare once and for all that health care is a fundamental right.
Just like Jefferson said.
Yeah.
And we will deliver that right with Medicare for all.
Okay, so this business about a fundamental right, I don't know where in the law or in the Constitution it says it's a fundamental right, but that's obvious. Here's the cost, Scott, of Medicare for all. And this is based on estimates from the Mercatus Center at George Mason, which is, right or libertarian leaning.
I would say libertarian
leaning.
Period, yeah.
And the Urban Institute, which is left leaning.
Right.
So you've got two estimates, and both of them are between $32 and $36 trillion. That's trillion with a T.
What's the problem?
Over 10 years.
Right, Tim.
Let's put it in perspective. That's over $3 trillion a year in cost to taxpayers. The total annual federal budget is $4 trillion. That means that the cost for Medicare for all is 3/4 of the entire federal budget.
Does that factor in the whole savings on postage for bills and such that's not going to be needed anymore?
I haven't rounded it.
I've heard a lot of those administrative things are going to be cut out.
Here's what they're doing, though. They're trying to project that the total out-of-pocket cost to Americans for health care will actually go down because you're going to
that's how they have to sell it.
You shut down the entire private health care insurance industry.
Really think that
but there's a key to this, Scott. The reason they can make those projections is because they're going to reduce the payments to health care providers by 40%.
Sure, that's
okay. So they were already
the rent's too damn high, right?
These healthcare providers were already squeezed by Obamacare, and now they'd be in a position where they'd be squeezed even more. So the access to care, the quality of care,
these doctors,
the waiting
they got
lines.
It made. They go to school for 6 weeks and then they roll into cushy jobs.
What is the cost of a medical degree? Do you have a round figure?
I used to know it from 25 years ago.
But I mean, most of them go into it because they do want to be doctors and they want to be in the medical field and they want to help people and get them healthy.
You can work in the medical field and help people and not break your back for all the years of medical
but this is what I'm saying
the profit motive is important.
There's got to be a sense that this will be something that could make me wealthy if I do it well, but it's going to cost me a lot to get the certification that I need. A medical degree. I don't have I wish I had.
Well, you also have the lost earning. Okay, so they go to school forever. These people
forever. It costs so much, and it's so difficult.
They work like dogs.
And
that's the other thing. They work all the time.
They have to start as residents in hospitals. They have to work incredibly long hours that make lawyers' hours look like nothing.
Well, not only that, but if you make a mistake, maybe you get fired if you're a lawyer. You don't cause somebody's death, probably.
So anyway, Medicare for all,
Well,
it means it's 160 million people will be moved from private insurance to a government program.
I will be moved to a different country.
Yeah.
So, does anybody ever take pause to say that, here's this woman who's pretty smart, but she was a Canadian and she went to Howard and then Hastings School of Law, and she was a DA in San Francisco. Maybe she doesn't have the right answer for how hundreds of millions of people should get their medical care and how that should be paid for. Where is the person who's saying, get the government out of this completely? That's what we need. People need food and water to survive. Where is the food and water police that the Kamala Harris is going to bring down? The idea that she should somehow decide which experimental therapies for advanced cancers should get funding or not, and how much Medicare should pay for them. That's where you have it. That's where you are going to have these death panels who say, you get your medicine, this medicine you don't get. That's what happens with when the government owns that whole sector. It has zero chance of going.
No,
forward,
it won't. It won't happen. But some sort of national health care guarantee is going to happen beyond what it is now. And this is, Scott, because when Obamacare was passed, it barely passed with no Republican votes, and it passed in 2010. Now, in 2012, we had a chance to take Obama out of the Oval Office, and we didn't do it as a nation.
You can't say take out like that, Tim. That's violent rhetoric.
So Obamacare got cemented into place until 2016. Now you're talking 6 years, and the reason I'm making this point is because after 6 years of getting something turns from a commodity to an entitlement. Mm-hmm. And all these Democrat candidates, including Kamala Harris, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Kirsten Gillibrand, all these people, Castro, they're all playing off the fact that people now sort of recognize universal health care as a right, as an entitlement.
And they're recognizing Obamacare as the failure that it is. That's the other thing that's kind of not talked about, right? Why would you need to change? We had this Obamacare system.
And why would you trust the Democrats?
Any politician, Tim, any.
But I mean, with Obamacare, I would trust reforms that strengthen the private sector, that strengthen
anything
the consumer.
That gets government out of it.
Yeah, exactly, because it would be a total disaster. But the point is that Obama winning re-election in 2012 permanently cemented Obamacare into place. That, of course, along with Chief Justice Roberts.
I don't like to say permanently, but it did cement it, to be sure.
Well, it cemented the notion that the government was responsible and would guarantee health insurance, or now Medicare for all kind of thing, for every American. When they could have done all along, Scott, I kept saying it, is if the concern was for indigent Americans who couldn't afford it.
Catastrophic policies, indigent people,
And you just put on a surcharge to everyone else's policy. You pay for it. You don't touch anybody else's insurance if you don't want it.
And you put it in the private sector, which is, you say, these are the coverages that we need. How much will you charge me to give these coverages? So it would actually be competitive, okay?
It would be.
Policies,
Now, they could have done that, but they wanted to transform the whole thing.
I'm going to give you a piece of good news. Here's why Kamala Harris is never going to win the Democratic nomination for President of the United States. Please go ahead and play Kamala and W.
Democratic values are under attack around the globe. When authoritarianism is on the march, when nuclear proliferation is on the rise.
There it is. Nuclear. I love it. Nuclear. That's the.
Do you remember how they teed off on George W. Bush? Because he always said nuclear. And then he said it just to get under their skin, it seemed like. Well, somehow Kamala Harris didn't get the memo. She's in the nuclear club as well.
That's really good. That's the only thing she has in common with George W. Bush.
I'm sure there will be much more presidential folly politics to report on in the future. For now, we're going to put a pin in it. thanks so much for joining us. Tim, thank you.
Thank you.
Archie the dog was there for part of it. Thank him.
Then he checked
Please
out.
visit libertynation.com. Do the good stuff on YouTube. Like, comment, and subscribe. And thanks for listening.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.